Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Kate Pittman, the host here of Creative Mornings Virginia Beach. I'm also the executive director of the Vibe Creative District. We're so pleased to welcome you here to the Garage VB. We've got Tessa Hall in the back there, the woman powerhouse behind the Garage VB. Thank you for having us. We have Robert Fiveash from Brand Fuel there, our check-in guru. Thank you, Robert. Chris Lane is doing our video today, and Sandy from Misty Saves the Day is also here on photography. And then our lovely Sunny Peoples, who's also on our Arts and Humanities Commission, and I also saw Olga, who's on our Arts and Humanities Commission here as well, so thank you for being here today. And then we also have a very special person, our Councilman, Worth Bremick. Thank you for coming out today. We also have a human rights member, Mark Stevens, and a RAC chair, Chuck Clayton. So we've got celebrities today. Good crowd. All right, our theme for April is Crossroads. It was chosen by the Wrocław chapter in Poland, illustrated by Joanna Gnandy, and is presented by Adobe. We all reach turning points in life that change the course of our destiny. Should you continue straight or turn left? There's no map that shows where the consequences will lead. In folklore and mythology, crossroads represent a gateway between our mortal coil and the supernatural realm, an in-between place of transition where anything can happen next. How do you decide which way to go? There is no wrong choice, only different journeys to where you're meant to be. I also forgot to mention Emily LeBeau's here from Cultural Affairs. I didn't see you sneak in. Another celebrity. All right. Adobe has joined Creative Mornings as the global partner, and they recognize the impact of Creative Mornings and having a global ecosystem of creativity. If you have not yet checked out the global platform for Creative Mornings and seen the over 260 other cities that are involved in this, we highly encourage it. They have online virtual field trips, which Sunny has been participating in and is raving about, so we encourage you to tap in and look at the other countries and cities that participate. All right, so big love to Adobe for supporting creative hearts and curious minds everywhere. Locally, our sponsors include the Vibe Creative District with funding from the Virginia Beach Arts and Humanities Commission, and also local independent donors. Today's coffee and snacks were sourced from Badass Coffee right down the street, and we encourage you to shop and eat local here in the Vibe District all year long. Without any further ado, we're gonna have Sunny come up here and introduce Michael. We'll do the manifesto next month.
Okay. I have the great pleasure to introduce this distinguished gentleman. Our featured speaker, Michael Berlucci, is the CEO of the Arts Alliance, a leading advocate for arts and cultural organizations in Southampton Roads. Since 1987, the Arts Alliance has provided over $25 million in support to more than 65 organizations and continues to expand access to the arts, drive strategic initiatives, and champion policies and strengthen the creative economy. Berlucci also serves as the Virginia Beach City Council member, representing District 3 since 2019. Please help me welcome Michael to talk about Creative Crossroads, arts, business, and our future.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay, let me see if I can get up on this stool. I was told I'd just sit on this stool. Got it? Okay. If I go down, I hope you're well insured. I'm just kidding. I know. This is precarious. Wow. Okay. I'm thrilled to be here. And Kate mentioned some of the people that I want to mention, and at the risk of missing someone, I'm not going to go around and name names. But when I look around this room this morning, I'm really so excited and grateful to be surrounded by so many people who I consider to be friends, colleagues, partners in advocacy and leaders in arts and culture, and also, I think more broadly, in our community, in our great city of Virginia Beach. So thanks to each and every one of you for everything that you do and for your leadership and service in Virginia Beach and beyond. It means a lot to be surrounded by so many people I respect. I also want to take a moment to thank Kate Pittman and the Vibe Creative District for leading this initiative, Creative Mornings. It's my first time. I get to be the speaker on my first visit to Creative Mornings. So I look forward to hopefully having the chance to, not hopefully, to attending future discussions as part of this program, which I think is a really important program, a really fantastic program. And of course, it's no accident that we're sitting in the Vibe Creative District, which I really consider to be a true success story in arts and culture, not just for Virginia Beach, not just for Virginia, but really nationally. I'm so pleased to see the thriving environment that the Vibe Creative District has helped foster for our residents, for our visitors. It's a creative space. It's a space that has produced economic activity, economic mobility, opportunity, creative expression. It's a safe space. It's a nurturing space for creatives, for business leaders, for real estate professionals, for visitors to enjoy. It helps to round out the experience that one has when they visit Virginia Beach, whether you come from near or far. The Vibe is a true success story. And I'm not going to go down the list of comparing it to other arts districts around the country or even in our sister cities, but there's something has really been done right here. And that's a tribute to certainly the city council members who led the initiative to authorize the ordinance to help create it. It's a tribute to the business professionals who led the way in really envisioning this and bringing it to the council with a concept that they could endorse. But more than that, it's a tribute to so many people in this room and beyond who are actually doing the work every day to make sure this district is what we know it to be. And we don't even know what the future holds for Vibe. So it's a true success story, and thanks to all of you for being part of it. So as was noted, I am the CEO of Arts Alliance, and that's a new job for me. I've had this job for about 1 month. It's also a very generous title, CEO, because it's really just pretty much me. But it looks good on a card, and I'll take that. We have a fantastic board of directors, and I want to talk a little bit about Arts Alliance and in a moment. And I also have the privilege to serve on our city council, and I'm one of the liaisons to our Arts and Humanities Commission. We've done some really remarkable things together in Virginia Beach to support arts and culture, and I hope we can talk a little bit about that. And then we could talk a little bit about what I think is relevant and germane to Arts Alliance, which is the business community's support for arts and culture in Virginia Beach and beyond. And then what I hope we can do is have a conversation. So I'm going to try not to talk too long, which can be difficult for me sometimes. But I hope that you will ask questions. But even more than that, I hope you'll share with us your perspectives on how we can improve, how we can unlock potential in the arts and culture space for all of us. But how did I get here? How did I end up sitting in this chair? It's very simple. In high school, I took an art appreciation class. And when I was in that class, the teacher was named Mrs. Chapman, and she was amazing. She was the kind of teacher that even the bad kids were not bad in her class. And it's not because they loved art, it's because she was so passionate about what she was doing. I wasn't one of the bad kids, by the way. Some depends on the class, but not in this one for sure. But you know those teachers that they're so passionate about what they're talking about, they're so serious about what they're doing, and they're so engaging with their students that you just can't help. Even if they didn't care, they were still respectful in her class. And that, to me, was art appreciation. And I started to understand that through the study of art history, or beginning to appreciate art, that I started to think about things that I never thought about before. History, it kind of literally illustrated history for me, which I was interested in, but not really. You read about the Reformation, and you depending on who you are, it may or may not be interesting. But then you see it illustrated, and it comes alive. you start to think about where we are today. It's, what I discovered was that it was about humanity. And it was about our history, it was about our hopes and dreams, our desires. It started to get me to think about things in a way that I wasn't really thinking before. Even conceptual, I'm a big fan of conceptual art and modern and contemporary art, especially those pieces that I hate. I love art that I hate because it creates connection with the people you're sharing it with. So you go, why do you hate that? Why do you think that's stupid? And why do you think you could have done that, but you didn't? All of those things. I'm not an art scholar. I'm not an art historian. I'm not an expert. I'm an appreciator. And that started in First Colonial High School with Mrs. Chapman. Then I realized I can't paint. I can't sing. I can't dance. Not that great of a writer. I'm not an artist, but I love and appreciate art. And so I wove arts and culture into my life in a way that I went to, as a consumer. I went to museums, I went to performances, and I just genuinely respect and appreciate people who create art, who create. And I also, hey Joel, what the hell? No, I'm just kidding. It was music. And I respect people who create. And I realized that I liked what I thought about when I was in a museum or watching a performance or consuming art in any way, looking at a mural. I just liked what I thought about. I liked the sort of initiation of ideas that occurred for me when I did that. So I just made art part of my life. And then many years later, I ended up in a professional transition. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I started looking around and thought, what I don't want to do is ever want to do one of those jobs again where you can't wait until it's 5 o'clock and you can leave. I hate that. And I promised myself if I could help it, I would. It's a privilege to not have to do that, but I never would want to do that again. And so I applied for a job at the Chrysler Museum of Art, a very frontline position, just to get my foot in the door. And I worked there for almost 15 years. And recently transitioned from that role into Arts Alliance. What I did at the Chrysler before I left was that I was the manager of community and government relations. But the principal focus of my work was on expanding and diversifying museum audiences, creating points of connection from what the museum was doing into our community. And there's a lot of work to be done in that area for our cultural organizations. I also, as manager of government relations, was engaged in maintaining our relationships, fostering our relationships with state, local, and federal officials. The Chrysler's relationship with the city of Norfolk is instrumental. They provide about a third, it's less now, but roughly, let's just call it a third, of their annual operating support. So that relationship is integral. And also, the state, the Commonwealth, at times has supported the Chrysler and other cultural organizations. Unfortunately, in I think 2009, can you all hear me okay with the planes? I think it's okay. It's part of Virginia Beach. We love it. A little bit louder. So in 2009, I think the Commonwealth ended what they called non-state agency funding. So funding for organizations that were not state agencies, cultural organizations, sort of stopped, but of course it never really does. There's always exceptions to that. So that's a whole other thing we could talk about. But we were successful in getting $1 million for the Glass Studio expansion project from the Commonwealth, which was not easy to do, but a fun puzzle to figure out. And sometimes when people ask me, well, you're not an artist or whatever, well, maybe not, but figuring out these puzzles is artistry in my mind. So that's one way I look at it. And anyhow, so then I had this opportunity to join Arts Alliance. And Arts Alliance was created in 1987 as the Business Consortium for the Arts. And this was a conglomerate of Hampton Roads businesses, large and small, who were devoted and dedicated to the concept of the private sector supporting arts and culture. And there's lots of reasons why I think a business or an individual can, I know this is a friendly audience, so none of you need to be convinced of this, but there's lots of good reasons why businesses and individuals can support arts and culture. And the Business Consortium for the Arts was created to be that sort of organization that supported the business community in supporting arts and culture. And this is really good in a lot of ways because, first of all, it creates critical mass. The Arts Alliance has invested more than $25 million, as Sunny noted, since it was created in 1987 to more than 65 arts organizations, large and small. I'm learning the sort of terminology Arts Alliance uses, so they call them majors and smalls. So that's kind of interesting. There's 6 major cultural, according to many, there are 6 major cultural organizations in Hampton Roads. Do y'all know what they are? So let's go over them. MoCA. Oh, yeah. Let's start with MoCA. Virginia MoCA, Chrysler Museum, Symphony, Opera, Stage Company, Arts Festival. So those are the 6, what they call majors. And I think that definition could be expanded, maybe. And then there are the ones they call smalls, which is not maybe the most flattering characterization of, yeah. But it's sort of challenging when you think about the funding formula here, because the majors need the support. They have a big infrastructure. They deliver a lot of services. But the smalls might too, because they may or may not have staff. They may not have a development department. For example, all the ones we just named have development departments with potentially 5 or 6 people working full time to raise money. And then the Tidewater African Cultural Alliance, for example, doesn't have, I don't know if they do or they don't, but likely doesn't have a development department. And so it becomes even more difficult. So I think it's challenging to find that balance about how to distribute those funds. The other thing is that we need to do in terms of Arts Alliance is expand our donor base. So if you're a business leader or an individual who would like to participate in Arts Alliance, I would love to talk to you about how we could partner to support our arts and culture community in Hampton Roads. That's one of the, I think, it's obviously the goal of any organization is to expand, but we've really kind of been, I say I'm going through the first allocation period is on May 1st, so I'll be learning a lot how this works after that, and maybe next year I'll come back and have a lot more perspective and information. But that's really what Arts Alliance does. The other thing that we do in addition to providing grant support annually is lead strategic initiatives. I'm going to talk about one specifically, well, I can give you a couple of examples. One is that, have you noticed the arts reporting from WHRO? It's very robust, in part because, and this had nothing to do with this, I came on after. They're really active this morning. Arts Alliance funded a pilot project with WHRO to expand arts reporting in Hampton Roads. And part of what I'm told, part of the deal was, and I have a meeting next week with our board chair, Lewis Webb, who's an amazing arts leader and advocate, and the WHRO team to expand, or to contemplate what our next steps are. But what they did is they funded a pilot program and provided funding to WHRO that would provide the resources needed to expand and to strengthen the WHRO arts reporting. And as a result, if you don't follow them on Facebook or on social media or go to their website, they're really good. And the other thing they did, and I'm told the discussion was around they weren't just going to reprint press releases. They were going to do real journalism in the art space with this grant, and by empowering a professional journalist to really dig into our arts and cultural community, and that's what they've done. And they've done it really well, and they're pretty much the only ones. I mean, the pilot will, no offense to the pilot, I don't want to make any enemies from the pilot here this morning, but you know, you get little snippets. But WHO has really done a great job. The pilot does a good job too. So that's a little bit about the Arts Alliance. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in Virginia Beach, and then let's kind of open it up for discussion. Virginia Beach has a fantastic record. I think we're often undersold in terms of our arts and cultural portfolio, including, like we talked about with the Vibe. I mean, Virginia Beach has poured resources, human and financial resources, into supporting the Vibe and to lots of other initiatives. We're so pleased, I'm so pleased, and we're lucky to have Emily LeBeau, our Cultural Affairs Director, with us this morning, and she gets a lot of credit. How long have you been doing it, Emily? 25 years. She gets a lot of credit for leading this initiative. She created an arts plan that we're still, always striving to live up to, but it's really been the roadmap for our cultural investment and cultural portfolio in Virginia Beach. And we've done a lot. We've invested a lot. And I have to say, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Worth Remick, our council member, my colleague. Worth and I think we're the arts. Well, Amelia too. We need to include Amelia. And we have a very arts-friendly council. Worth and I talk about the arts a lot, and we collaborate very frequently and commonly in this space, and Worth is a great champion for all of us as well. So thank you, Worth. And the fact that he's here proves it. So we've been doing a lot of great work for a long time. I just kind of want to talk to you a little bit about something that I've been involved with, and Worth has been involved with, Emily's been involved with, Kate, and a lot of other people in this room. We doubled down on arts funding. We really made a transformational, I think, historical shift in the way that Virginia Beach funds arts and culture, really with last year's budget. And correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but this was the largest investment we've made in a long time into arts and culture in Virginia Beach. I mean, I'm leaving out the Sandler Center. I mean, I could go on and on about the things Virginia Beach has done. These were before my time. I'm not diminishing them. I just can't speak with authority about them. But most recently, what we discovered, and something that really set me off, is Virginia Beach invests in economic development. We invest in youth development. We invest, like we have this Parks After Dark program, which is meant to connect underserved neighborhoods specifically with lots of different resources and show support and love and connect communities, and it's a great program. We invest in our Parks and Recs department, specifically youth athletics, a lot of youth athletics, and I'm for all that. But one of the things that really got me was that we started talking about making a major investment in our sports facilities, and meanwhile we were scraping to just barely come up with any dollars to support arts organizations that were literally dying in the realm of the post-COVID era, with inflation, with the economic environment that we're living in. One of them, which I think is public record, so I feel comfortable talking about, Virginia Musical Theater, was in real financial struggle, not because of mismanagement, not because of reckless spending or whatever, or flaw in they have the largest audiences that they've ever been receiving. It's just that their costs are through the roof, and their income and corporate support hasn't kept pace with the rising costs that they've been facing. I know MoCA has experienced a lot of similar challenges. And yet we were having trouble coming up with the resources to support the continued operations of, and I'm using this as an example, such a vital community organization. And Virginia Musical Theater is wonderful. It's a partnership with the Governor's School for the Arts. It's in some ways a community theater, because a lot of the people who participate live and work with us, but then they also bring professional actors and from all over the country, and those people are, it's just really neat how the cumulative effect of this collaboration has on our community, and it's really entertaining. And so we can't let them die. We can't let them close, shutter after 30-something years. So what we came up with was that we needed to invest in, we needed to create opportunities for public investment in the arts. I didn't know how to do that, particularly because you don't want to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes at all. I don't think y'all want us to raise your taxes either, even if it is to pay for the arts. So we have to get creative about using the resources that we have. Also, I'm going to be honest with you, politically, you don't want to be seen as raising taxes. You know, I wasn't sure how the public would respond. I've learned, though, which is something I'm going to share. They responded very positively. But I wasn't sure politically, if you went out on a limb for arts and culture, how the community, you might be perceived as being, spending too much, and you know all the things. So we did not want to raise taxes, and we asked our budget. I can't take credit for this. Our budget staff deserves credit for this. We said, how can you give us some options on how to increase funding? And what they came up with was dedicating 20% of the admissions tax, which formerly had gone to the TIP fund, which is the Tourism Investment Program, which is an amazing fund. And Chuck is here from the RAC, and I know the RAC is very protective of the TIP fund. But what was happening is we were effectively tapping, I call it tapping the tip, to fund arts organizations anyway. And I think arguably that's an appropriate funding source for arts organizations because it does support tourism. It does create activity, and particularly in restaurants, but also hotels. We know that for a fact. But so that was our funding source when we were going for the VMT appropriation. So we said, they came up with, well, if we dedicated that 20%, it'll generate 1.6, 1.7 additional $1 million a year. And that's a growing revenue source. We have the Dome coming online. We have more people attending concerts. If you buy any, admissions tax is any ticket to the bowling, trampoline park, movies, whatever. The rodeo, if you went to the rodeo when's the rodeo, last weekend? If you went to the rodeo, you bought a ticket, you pay into the admissions tax. So carving out that 20% and directing it to arts and culture, it allowed us to do a few things. First of all, we plussed up the arts and humanities budget. What can you help me with the number?
It's like
$350,000 more. So what's the total now?
Well,
We moved some things around.
we moved some things around, but it's about $750,000.
So where were we before?
About plus 4 or something.
Yeah. So let's just call it.
We took MOCA, we took VMT and ZL, and moved them to a different pocket.
But still, I mean, with all the math, it's fair to say about $350,000 more available to the Arts and Humanities Commission than was before. We also created a public arts fund, so $300,000, roughly $300,000 invested into public art. We haven't even seen what that's going to do yet. I would love your ideas. We created a creative neighborhood grant, which is amazing. In fact, I just saw Poetry's post about Scarborough Square on my way here, so I wanted to talk about that. And we also created a fund for individual artists. So let's say that you wanted to do a poetry workshop, or you got a show at the Sandler Center, which the Sandler Center supports the installation, it supports the paintings, it supports whatever, but it doesn't support the materials, is that right? So for poetry, I'm talking about poetry again. Poetry Jackson had this amazing show with huge, large-scale canvases. Well, she had to pay for those. Very expensive. And just the paint, because I'm sure she used a lot of paint on those. So she could, for example, an artist like Poetry could apply for a grant to support all those things. If you wanted to have a concert, whatever you wanted to do, any artist could apply for grants up to, how much? 4,800. Tessa, you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I got both grants. So this is the first time I'm announcing I got the neighborhood grant to do all of the art shows, and I also got an artist grant. So
Congratulations.
some of the members here wrote me letters, and so it was really exciting.
It's amazing. And then we also, I'm going to come back to the Creative Neighborhood Grant. We also created something that was, I forget what it's called, the Large Organization Grant? Sustainability Grant. And that's something that, for example, the VMT, I think the ones that qualify for that are like the VMT, the Ziders, and MoCA. So that the city can direct funding to those organizations and has a pool to tap from, not only to just to support the sustainability of, these are our majors, you know, and they're facing unique challenges that some of the smaller ones aren't, and so we want to make sure these are keystone cultural organizations in Virginia Beach. And we want to make sure they continue to thrive long into the future. So that grant pool created opportunity to support that, but specifically the Creative Neighborhood, that's the one I love them all, but well, it depends which one we're talking about, I guess, is which one I get the most excited about. But the Creative Neighborhood Grant I want to tell you about. And I don't want to talk about a mural or a concert or anything that's going to happen. I want to talk to you about what happened at Panera Bread when Poetry Jackson met the Scarborough Square Civic League. Here you had a civic league. First of all, I love Scarborough Square. They're one of my #1 civic leagues from District 3. I love them. I respect them. They're the passionate community leaders. And they're also angry. They're angry because they face crime. They're angry because they face waste management issues. Their code enforcement is a problem in Scarborough. Scarborough Square is an underserved neighborhood. They've got a lot of challenges. These challenges are not exactly related to the city. They're related to just the conditions on the ground in that neighborhood and the economic challenges that many of the people who live there face. But yet, they have a lot of problems they need to deal with, more so than a lot of other neighborhoods in Virginia Beach. And so normally when we meet, it's characterized by these challenges that are being faced and how are we going to respond to them and how are we going to deal with them. And I don't want to say it's not negative, but it's realistic. It's what they're dealing with. And the Creative Neighborhood Grant gave, I think, all of us, including me, a chance to really be hopeful about something, to be positive about something, to work together to create. And so I suggested that they might want to talk to poetry. It's just an idea. And they met, and there they were, you know, intergenerational, from different backgrounds, different life experiences, different walks of life. This one guy, Jim, who I just love, Jim, but I think he's in his 90s. You know, the wax mustache and everything. And there, he's great. He's so amazing. But there they were, plotting a public art project together in Panera, Lynn Haven. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because the neighborhood was connecting with someone they didn't know. They were collaborating, they were working together, they were supporting each other. They were forging human connections that never would have been possible without the existence of this grant. And those bonds are going to last much longer. And a paintbrush hasn't hit any surface. No mic has been, there's no stage set up. Nothing has happened creatively. And there they are, creating these lasting community connections. And that's happening in neighborhoods all over Virginia Beach. How many grants? 13 grants, just this year, up to $10,000. That's happening. In order to get the grant, you had to, a civic league had to partner with an artist or an artist collective, and then they had to find a common theme or, you know, project. And then they had to articulate that project and submit it to the city for review. But in doing so, just, you know, all of these connection points are happening all over the city, and we haven't even done anything creative yet. One thing I really want to do is make sure we capture those stories. You're already on board. So, I mean, that's to me the power of art and culture. One last story I'll tell you. Is that, you know, 19th and Cypress is a rainbow crosswalk. Kate, you deserve a lot of credit for this. Because we went to her, at the time I was the president of Hampton Roads Pride, which is an LGBT advocacy organization. It's a volunteer role. But there were these crosswalks popping up in cities all around the country. Big cities mostly. And I don't know, we just thought we wanted to try to get one here. And they weren't really in cities of our size or whatever, but as a person who grew up here as a member of LGBT community, I couldn't wait to get out of here, to be honest with you. And I'm getting old, you know, so it's different times. Times were tougher then, they're better now. It's not, you know, we're getting better now. But I know what the power of a symbol like this can have. And the vibe seemed like the right place to do it. I think, Kate, maybe you might have suggested it to us. I'm not sure, because you were doing them. We said, all right, we want to do this, and then how are we going to do it? And it's not easy. You know, you have public works involved, road safety. You know, is a rainbow going to be a distract drivers? Is the paint going to, you know, be safe on the roads? And how are you going to do? And then is WRV going to let us paint a rainbow crosswalk in front of their, you know, surf shop? Which nothing against WRV. It's just, you know, the surf culture wasn't gay friendly when I was growing up. And everything came together. We had to use a little muscle. But everything came together. And the amazing thing, I would say there's two amazing outcomes here. One is that, and this was by coincidence, do you remember the first time we painted it was in, I don't know why we thought painting in January was a good idea, but we painted in January, you remember? It was January of 2017, and this was after the first Trump election. And do you remember how there were protests after the inauguration? I'm not talking about the Women's March yet. This was like maybe the day after the inauguration. There were protests, and there were even like incidents, isolated, but there were incidents of violence around the country and cars being burned, things like that. And I think the headline, if you go back and search it, you'll find it. It'll say something like, protests around the country are breaking out, and in Hampton Roads, they're painting a rainbow crosswalk. And Wavy did an article like that. I get goosebumps talking about that too, because that's the power I think that art can have, is that a lot of the same themes were present from people who participated that day, but they were working together, and more than 500 people showed up to put their mark on that sidewalk. It was the biggest turnout still, and that was 2017, because they wanted to participate in something that meant something. They wanted to participate in creating history in this case. They wanted to do a physical representation that Virginia Beach was welcoming to all people. And the other thing that I think about a project like that is that somebody is driving in that car with their mom or dad, and they may not be ready to have that conversation even with themselves, but they know that it's there. And they know that Virginia Beach is a community, that there are people here who will accept them and embrace them and support them and recognize their humanity, whenever they're ready. And that didn't exist when I was growing up. I would have liked to have known that. I probably wouldn't have jumped on board at that point, you know, if I was sitting in the back of my mom's car, but I would have known that it was there, and I didn't know that when I was young. And it also shows our visitors that, you know, come on and visit here. Everyone is welcome here, and you'll be treated with respect and dignity when you come. So that's just a couple reflections, I think, on the transformational power. But you need business and public to support these initiatives. And I think I have these numbers here, but I'm not even going to read these numbers to you. It's about, you know, actually, I need to make a plug for Arts Alliance. They did a study in 2024 about the economic impact of arts and culture, and it's very important. So I don't want to diminish this study, because Arts Alliance funded it and is a leader, and it's really important. In 2022, this was the year they chose to study. The study was conducted in 2024. Nonprofit and arts and culture sector contributed $270 million to the Southampton Roads economy. 140 million of that was in arts and culture organization spending. The 130 million was audience-related spending, supported nearly 5,000 jobs, and generated $52 million in local, state, and federal taxes. So that's a significant, I actually think that's low. I think it probably could be higher. But I also want to share that I don't think you can measure the impact of what we do in dollars and cents. The impact is the human impact. It's the community connections that occur when you're meeting at Panera to form a project. It's the sense of pride and fulfillment you have in where you live when you're painting something, when you're painting a crosswalk that means something to you, that's going to be there for hopefully forever. That's the impact that it's the individual artist who can get a grant to create their work and express themselves and be a more fulfilled human being because of the public support. And business community has to step up to the plate. We don't know where government's going to be, and the business community has to do it. And the other thing that I just want to share, I want to close on, is that we need to make sure that public sector and private sector are stepping up to the plate to support the creative community for all the reasons we talked about, because the rich person is going to have their art. Right, Allison? She knows the collectors. Mr. and Miss Rich people are going to have their art. And it'll be in their private gallery, and they're going to buy it from whatever, and they're going to collect it, but we can't always see it. And so that's why these institutions and things like the Vibe help all of us who aren't those types of collectors. You can be a collector at any level, of course, but we need to make sure that we're making these amenities, these things available to all people. So I have a couple questions that I would just pose to you, but you can talk about whatever you want. What do you think of Arts Alliance? Many of you may be hearing about it for the first time, but you know, we provide grants and we provide leadership in the arts space. We have a board meeting coming up. I'd like to report to them, these are the types of things that I'm hearing that the public would like us to do. I gave you an example of WHRO funding. What else could Arts Alliance do? What special project might we take on that would benefit the arts and cultural community? How do you think the business community, or do you think the business community in Hampton Roads supports arts and culture in Hampton Roads? How could they do it better? How could we engage them to be more effective with their investment in philanthropy? And where do we go from here? I mean, where do you think we are, and where do you think we need to be in terms of all of these issues? Okay. Let me start with Jessica.
For the recording. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Jessica Chavon. I've been an art educator for 12 years at Cox High School.
Teacher of the Year.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I get emotional, but this is a very important topic for me. And we're so lucky to have you, Michael, as an advocate for the arts. I've known Michael for years, and he's always said yes. And Allison and Kate, everyone, you guys have been so awesome. But we have a real issue with the arts in public schools. We're overcrowded, of course, and we're failing in our numbers just because I feel like the city has set up a schedule that isn't conducive to taking arts. It's like theater and music. So we went from a block schedule that was every other day and all year round to an A-B schedule with AP classes being year round. So our lower income kids don't really tend to take the AP courses. So it's definitely a gap between, it's an equality gap for sure with all the AP classes being implemented and pushed on students. And AP, I could go on to this forever. I'm sorry you asked that question because AP is definitely a money-making business where you pay for exams. And so that keeps our lower income kids, and at Cox High School we don't have a whole lot. So there's a big gap there just with scheduling and it's hard for teachers because it's A, B, and then you have year-round, and then it's also semesters. So you get a whole new group of kids. So sometimes they'll give me Art 2 first semester, and then they'll give me Art 1 second semester. And that makes no sense because my Art 1 kids then can't move on to Art 2 in a sequential manner. So our numbers are falling in public schools, and I've been an advocate. I'm always the one that they're scared that raises their hand at the school board meetings. But
They
yes,
got worse. They got worse.
it got worse. So
They got worse than you.
I really got teary-eyed in this community because I'm actually leaving my job because I can't. It's not sustainable. And I'm trying to get more involved with the community. I'm so sorry. So it makes me emotional to be in this room with people that are really advocating and supporting the arts when it really starts with our students. And so I'm kind of leaving them, but I really want to start advocating for the community as a whole. So if any of you that are involved in the arts can think of anything that we can do for our public school systems, and I especially am worried about the political community, and Kate knows about this, and I'm sorry if I bring it up, but I had a student that created a piece that was nude, and it was a tasteful nude, but it wasn't allowed to be in a show. And my argument was that the state has a titty on it, the state flag. So I was like, I don't understand, like there's no nipple showing, like, so it's just things like that, and I could go on and on. Like I had the librarian wanted to check out my art books in the beginning of this year to see if there was anything that the kids couldn't see, and I mean, of course, all my art books have nudes in them, it's art and art history. So it's just things like that that have kind of broken me down over the years, and I feel like I can do more outside of the system. So that's just what I wanted to say, is we're thriving here as a community, but it starts with our kids, and especially now healing. Like arts are so mentally healing. I have kids in my classes, I tell them, like, don't think of it as art, it's an art therapy class. You're here for, this is your time for therapy, because they're struggling. Mental health is a crisis, and art and music is really an outlet for a lot of those kids. So I would like to start talking about programs for our youth.
I just want to say that, I know I've been talking all morning. I just want to say this one thing. What really upsets me about this, and we have been friends for a long time, she's Mrs. Chapman. You know, I talked about Mrs. Chapman. She is Mrs. Chapman. And they're losing her. So whatever is going on in those schools is not good, because Mrs. Chapman was old, okay, when I had her. She's not old. You have a lot more to give, and the fact that, and I respect your choice. I mean, you have to protect yourself, and I can relate to that. But I mean, I know you weren't Teacher of the Year for nothing, and we've done a lot of collaborations over the years. Jessica invests everything into her students, and that's what makes such a great educator. So whatever is broken in the school division that's driving you out needs to be fixed.
I just want to add something too really quickly, because it's anecdotal, but what you brought up is really relevant, right? So a young student made a beautiful piece of art that, yes, had the curvature of a body with nothing grotesque in it, and was denied, even though they won an award, was denied the opportunity to display their art. So when we talk about the intersection and the crossroads of art and business, Garrett in the back will hopefully remember when I came to work, and said, "Ugh, can you believe this? Here's what's happening." And Garrett said, "We need to put that on display in the lobby at our business, and let's talk to Mocha," right? And so that student who was, taken out of a public art exhibition at the school, which understandably was because there were elementary school students and they didn't want any kind of nudity there for elementary, okay, but we were able to take that high school art and put it into a formal exhibition that's now a resume builder, right? That student has been seen in a museum exhibition. Thank you, Mocha. Thank you, Garrett from Runnymede. Yeah. But that, I think, is such an illustrative moment of the power of community and of, you have something you think is a problem or a PR nightmare, and look at that success story now, right? And so it takes, though, the courage of our private business sector for saying, oh, no, let's bring it down here, bring it in, we're going to put it on the wall, let's get, Mocha on board. And so beautiful story. Next question. Joel.
I'm interested in your comments. I mean, you've worked at Chrysler Museum and everything that's going on around here about getting business engaged in this. Like, how did the Arts Alliance start? Because I assume it's all private sector money. like what's the messaging? Who do you go after? I mean, it is a challenge around here. We don't have a bunch of top 500 corporations, to do this stuff. How do you get people like to their heart, I guess, and then to their wallets?
Very good question.
Yeah, I'm still working on that. I mean, I've been there a month. I would tell you my impression is that there are truly caring business. I mean, ultimately, it's not a business giving, it's a person. Somebody is making that decision, or some group of people is making that decision. So behind every business title, behind every business name is a person or group of people who are making investments in our community, philanthropic investments. My impression is that there is a group of caring businesses that are legacy givers that have, and some of them have been there from the beginning, since 1987, and have continuously, every year, included in their budget, a appropriation for the Arts Alliance. And so we have a lot of legacy partners, but we need to expand that base. When I look at our members, there's a lot left on the table in terms of folks we need to engage. And frankly, one of the benefits of giving to Arts Alliance is, if you're a business owner or a corporation, is that you can go and you can tell the people who reach out to you for donations to come to us. So when the arts organizations come to Steele, who's not a member, but I hope to, they're on my radar, and they say, can you give a donation? They could say, we wrote a big check to Arts Alliance, and you should go see them. And that's a benefit to the business, actually, that they don't have to filter through all those things. So we are seeking an expansion of membership. I started a month ago, and so I am learning the administrative processes and kind of the culture that exists there, and the bank account. I'm still not added to the bank account yet. That's how new I am. So I'm working on, that's next week. I'm working on those things, and then we're going to hit the ground hard in terms of making sure that we're reaching those people. And part of it is just making sure that they understand the value, the inherent value of investment into arts and culture for the region, and then partnering that with those sort of strategic projects that we can hopefully match a funder with an interest. So those are a couple of things. There was one thing else I wanted to say. Wasn't it, but I'll take this moment to really, I mentioned Lewis Webb. He's our board chair. All of our board members are fantastic. Lewis Webb is a visionary leader and he was the chair of the Chrysler board. He was the chair of the Arts Festival, I think. They're not married. Yeah, they have, I think, both. But anyhow, I'm not going there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lewis is a visionary, strategic thinker, and we're very lucky to have, I would just want to pay tribute to him. We're very lucky to have him engaged in this organization and helping to lead it. And I'm lucky to have this chance to do it. I hope I don't, no, never mind. We're going to do great.
1 month on the job, but in some sense, you've been doing this for 40 years, right? Okay, here you go.
I'm not that old.
No, oh, sorry, 35. No.
Thank you. My name is Sue Labrato, and hi. I haven't made a formal announcement anywhere, but I feel compelled to say this here, that I am going to run for the school board next year, and I'm a very strong proponent of the arts. I am a closet artist myself, so I would like to talk to you, Jessica, and
What
support
district?
you. Worths. 6, right here. And Michael, I was a volunteer on the board for the American Heart Association some years ago, and my role was chair of the Circle of Red, which was the high donors. And so I have some experience, and I have some ideas about how you might be able to achieve your goals. I'd love to work with you on that.
Thank you. I would love to also.
I like that. Did you have a comment? Last. One more? Oh, sorry.
So I'm Garrett Berger from the Runnymede Corporation. Thank you. And MoCA really made that happen because they control the space in our gallery. So I was thrilled when they said, oh, of course we'll do that. There are a couple things I wanted to say. On the Alliance, I think that it is very tangible evidence and a reason why Hampton Roads punches well above its weight when it comes to the arts. The majors that you mentioned are jewels in this community. Many cities our size, regions our size, do not have that collection of culture. And I think the Arts Alliance supporting it and business leaders supporting it. I work for a family that has been supporting MoCA and many other arts institutions for a long time. I'm on the symphony board and I appreciate the funding there. So I think there are businesses who care, but we have to keep making sure they do. The other thing we need to think about is supporting our local businesses. We need our town banks and our Centeras and others. And I know we all get frustrated sometimes as customers and patients and other things, but if we don't have the corporate champions in the community who feel obligated in an appropriate way to invest back in the community, we'll lose so much. I mean, losing Norfolk Southern was catastrophic to many organizations. And I think part of the Alliance and hopefully working with other organizations here is how do we support and protect the corporate champions we have, and then how do we grow new ones? Because we need to see a dynamic business community here with new emerging businesses that are growing and productive who want to invest back here. And so, you know, in many places, we think of business and the arts as these entirely separate worlds. And I appreciate feeling comfortable here with you guys. And I love so many creative things, and I wish I was more creative in certain ways. But I try to find ways to be creative. And I love working with people who value the arts. And so I just want to say we need to make sure that both of those communities see each themselves as one and not separate things. And we need to not just rail against the frustrations of maybe large organizations. I mean, if you've ever dealt with a large healthcare organization, you know that's very difficult. But then you go to a performance and you hear they're the presenting sponsor for the season. And so, I mean, there's a balance there, and I think there's opportunities for all of us to appreciate and encourage those organizations to keep investing in what makes a great community. So I think that's a huge opportunity for you, and I just want to say more of us need to be putting effort into that so that the funding sources are there. Because I agree, we're going to need to keep going with funding sources.
Do companies want branding opportunities, or is it just we know we should be doing this? What is it that they're looking for, like Runnymede?
There's two kinds. There's the kind that do it because they love it, right? Andrew Fine helped found the Vibe because he just loved the idea. The fines are given to MoCA because I'm on the symphony board because I just love music and I don't play anymore, but that's how I support classical music in our community. And then there are people who want the brand image and who need it. And you know, I think Town is an awesome example of they see the power of both. I think they do it and they do things even when their name isn't plastered on it, but I think they also see that it's very valuable for them to be associated with all these things. And I think Centera's the same, and those are two of the most critical donors we have in our community. We need to find ways to tell their leadership, you've got to keep doing this. So.
And Garrett, let me just, last question, I don't need to dominate. But, and you can answer this, are there certain companies that say, well, if Centera's doing it, I need to do it, right? To be a player in Hampton Roads.
So no, I think there's a tier that they're in by themselves. And what I'm talking about is we need to grow that tier, okay? So like Drone Up, and there are other companies that a lot of people are excited about is like, how are they gonna grow up into the future Dollar Tree, the future Norfolk Southern in this area, okay? And how do we help that happen? That tier is its own tier, and they do it a lot of times for the right reasons. The tier where you need the competition is in the professional services firms, the law firms and the engineering firms and the accounting firms. They'll do it competitively, and that's good. Car dealerships are hard because they want to be the only one, and that's the problem. You get this other thing where it's like, I'll do it, but you can't have so-and-so alongside me. And that's something we need to talk to the business community about is, hey, it doesn't need to be exclusive. Like, every dollar matters. Let's get you up there, and then let your competitor be up there too. Like, everyone needs to be supporting the arts.
Preach, preach. Okay, I'm gonna make one comment and then I want you to come up because you're too close to the camera. It's a great question though, because I think you talk about sponsors and where they need to be in a tier or a ranking, right? Same thing, I think, for arts organizations, and even now the independent artist businesses, is that you are, a reflection of your community. And so for arts groups, for instance, for Vibe, when we were starting out and the Arts Alliance funded us, it was like, yes! We needed that credibility. We needed the cultural affairs support. We needed the Virginia Commission for the Arts to endorse us, to make us look like what we wanted to be, right? And then the town banks come, and then the Centeras come, and the list came to, then you start to get those other names. But it is kind of a little bit of a game sometimes. Was there another question over here? Okay, sure.
I know we're running out of time, but I remember what I was going to say, and because Garrett reminded me. The other thing that we need to do is we need to integrate arts and culture into the larger regional conversations. So, for example, and I'm talking about business. I'm also the liaison to the Development Authority, Virginia Beach Development Authority, one of the liaisons, and arts and culture are a critical piece of business attraction and retention. I go with the chamber on these things called leadership exchanges, and you go to Charlotte, or you go to Tampa, or this year they're going to Austin. What do these cities have in common? A thriving cultural community. And so we need our chamber, we need our Hampton Roads Alliance, we need our Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable. We need to integrate. That's one of my goals, I want to let you know, in terms of the Arts Alliance, is to fully integrate the arts and cultural community and economy with our larger regional conversations about business attraction, retention, and expansion, and workforce development. Sean Avery is the director of the Workforce Council. We haven't scheduled it yet, but we're excited to have a conversation about how does workforce development in our region relate to this industry? Because it's not only, I don't like to think of it as an industry, because to me it's about the human side. That's why I love it. But there is an industrial component to what we all do, and that needs to be more fully integrated. Sorry.
Okay, so last question, and then we're going to let Worth speak.
It's not a question, it's just a real quick comment. I won't be as long. But Garrett and Michael, I will be reaching out to both of you because my next sector will be teaching adults. And I think a great way to get these companies more involved with the arts would be team building, using arts as a therapy. So.
File that one. That's a great idea. Okay, Worth Remick.
Thanks, Kate. So I'll come back to Michael in a minute, but just a little bit more comment about the arts and the business. And you just said it, workforce development. I would want to work for a company that supports the arts. And so that company that I'm going to work for is out there trying to hire people. Workforce development is a huge issue today in the business community. So I think you just said it a minute ago, workforce development. Everyone here loves Michael. I just want to compliment you and thank you for everything you're doing on council around the city. But also, Michael is a patron and a fan of the region, as he said a couple times, as I am as well. So Virginia Beach is a part of our region. The more we can do to help our city become a part of our region, Joel, the better off we all are. Secondly, also, Michael is a champion of mental health. And he's brought that perspective to City Council. He's brought that learning to me, and so I appreciate that. So thank you, Michael, for the arts support. Well, I need a leader. He's a supporter of the a new law enforcement training academy. But anyhow, time is up. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You have one more? Okay, for real. For real.
I'm going to ask Michael, so you gave us the background, which is awesome, but even if we didn't know the background, it's clear that you've worked hard to give yourself a platform where you can be that champion. We don't all have that platform. Actually, there's a lot of heavy hitters in this room who maybe do have influence on budgets and other things, but not everyone does. To the people who don't have your platform, how can we be champions with you?
That is a very good question. Ask your employer to join the Arts Alliance. That's one way. And I'm going to give you my card. I was running, and it's kind of embarrassing that I've got these cards, but you can reach me any kind of way. I don't have enough. I think I should have. Take a picture of it, whatever. Ask your employer to join Arts Alliance. That's one. The other thing is join a board. Volunteer for an arts organization. MOCA has lots of volunteer opportunities. Join our Arts and Humanities Commission if you're interested in that. There'll be vacancies, coming up over time, and we need strong advocates. Tell your city council member that you want to see continued. First of all, contact your city council member and talk to them and get to know them, and then tell them that you see public investment in arts and culture as a necessary investment, and help us move the needle. Those are some of the ideas off the top of my head. Anyone have any others? There's lots of different ways you can do it.
I would just follow up on that and say advocate, right? And that is something that is typically free. It does take time. It does take effort. But there are groups out there. And so as you become interested, tapping into those networks and really showing up and writing the emails, making the phone calls, that doesn't cost you anything. And you can actually help be a part of that persuasive force that can help make those decisions happen.
Run for office, like this lady's going to do.
No.
Not against me, though. Don't do it against me.
Don't make them do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark, you have one.
Just one quick comment. And invest in the arts. Sitting around looking at all the art on the wall.
Yeah, show up.
Yes, so we talked about how all the rich people get all the nice art, but as you can see all around you, there are over 200 works of art here. This is the Mighty Minis show. There are 70 artists, over 200 works of art. Each piece is only $120. They are on sale this weekend on Saturday. Shop local, shop small, help a small business, help an artist running.
And there's some artists that are here. We've got Rachel, we've got Jess, who else?
I see some pieces that I like, but Tessa said something, and I think it's a great way to end. Show up. The world, this is a true phrase, you all heard it, the world is run by the people who show up. Trust me, I'm a council member. The world is run by the people who show up, because we hear from people, and that moves the needle on things that may or may, on all kinds of topics. Decisions are made that don't always reflect the majority because of loud voices. And it is run. Show up to that meeting. And there's one person I can think of in the city who shows up to everything, and they have a strong effect on what happens just by being present. So show up.
Like you did this morning.
Great. All right, we're going to go ahead and end on that note. Tessa's going to pull up the door. Please come outside and grab a group photo, and then you may ask more questions. Thank you.